Hello and welcome to Love the Darts. Wow. And breathe. The 2024 World Darts Championship is over. And as always, we seem to say what a few weeks we've had at Alexandra Palace. We always say it's the best tournament ever, but maybe we're right this time. So many stories told. One in particular grabbing the attention of the world. It certainly felt like anyway. And a new world champion as well. Yeah, Luke Humphries continued his quite ridiculous form to lift the Sid Waddell Trophy after beating 16-year-old Luke Littler. Yeah, he is 16. Didn't you know that? In the final. Joining me here to look back over the past few weeks at the Palace and help you not to be too sad that it's over, but to smile that it all happened is one of our Sky Sports Darts journalists, Megan Wellens. Welcome to the show. I say welcome. You've been on our daily podcast, so this isn't new to you.
Thank you.
How have you enjoyed the last few weeks?
It's been crazy, hasn't it? This is my second World Championships I've been out for Sky, and every year is amazing, but I think this year has kind of shocked us all as it's gone on.
Yeah, so you were there for a good 10 days at Alexandra Palace. How did it all sort of build up to the final? Because I kind of put my head in the press room every now and then, but I was sort of like, once I kind of got pitched up in the studio, I just was going nowhere, mainly because getting up to the studio was not easy. But the press room, obviously it just got busier and busier throughout the tournament. And that day of the finals, it felt like you couldn't pack any more people in there.
No, I think they had to get overflow rooms for people. There was every radio station, every TV station around the world turning up. And I think when we first saw, for me, Peter Wright, we kind of knew he wasn't in great form. So him going out, we were kind of like, well. Yeah. But then when Go and Price was going out, I started thinking, okay, this is going to be a bit different this year. As it grew and grew into this amazing story that we've had, that press room was just more and more buzz, and I don't think I've ever seen kind of the table at the back of the room surrounded by more cameras and more people.
It was crazy. I remember speaking to Dave Allen, who's head of media at the PDC, and this must have been on, I think, semi-finals night. And he was like, Em, I can't even accommodate all the people. I'm having to kind of turn people down because, like ITV News want to come, BBC do, but they want a second crew. Everyone, it took everybody's, just took the minds of people. It went crazy, didn't it? It was like the people I was speaking to have never watched darts before. That's what it did, and they were just saying, "Wow, this 16-year-old."
Yeah, because I think when I was there last year, we obviously had that incredible moment with the 9 darter, and I remember thinking, because that felt like it took darts global, and like Michael Smith was on podcasts in America, and it felt like, wow, the sport has really hit new audiences. But this was, people's mums tuning into the darts who've never watched a game of darts in their life, and it was kind of, people couldn't quite believe what they were witnessing on this stage, and it kind of just was this snowball effect to this. I mean, like Luke, it showed we had the world number one and this incredible sensation on the stage. It was the final to remember, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a fitting final. It's funny because I was talking to people throughout the tournament as well. There's a documentary that's coming out later in the year on Sky. And they were just saying, like, is this really unusual? I was obviously like, Luke Littler, yes, this is unusual. But I was like, darts is that kind of sport where we saw it in the final last year. Like, something can just happen out of nowhere and just emerge. And that's kind of what happened this year, where a story just emerged and we were just, like you said, it just kind of snowballed into this, incredible sort of story.
Yeah, and I think the world's always throws up stories, doesn't it? Like, you have, because I remember, like, the first night, Cameron Menzies had been out doing his job as a plumber.
Yes,
and that had gone viral on Twitter, and that was a big thing. And then, like I was saying, all these prior world champions getting dumped out of the tournament, and then I think Michael Smith being knocked out was a huge thing as well. And I think every year there is something that captures the attention, and I remember being at the press day beforehand, and there was whispers of like, this little kid's good, but I think everyone thought he'd do well, but no one knew how good he would be.
We've got some incredible guests in the studio today who we're going to hear from in just a few moments' time, because the champ is in the building. Yeah, you're going to hear from Cool Hand Luke and the man that, well, everybody is talking about, Luke Littler, as well as the PDC's chief executive, Matt Porter, to discuss all things Premier League picks. But let's get into it. Hopefully a lot of you have actually been listening to our daily podcast throughout the tournament. So look, forgive us if we're not able to cover every single story in this episode. But Megan and I are going to start with a final that just captured the imagination of quite literally the whole world. That's how it felt anyway. Teenage star Luke Littler amazed us all by reaching the final on his debut, where he met the machine that is Luke Humphries at the moment. It was, of course, Humphries that prevailed in that real quality contest to carry on his formidable form. I mean, it is 4 major tournament wins on the trot. And I remember being sort of at the World Grand Prix, and we were all saying like that it's gonna. Luke Humphries at some point he is just going to bang that door down and he's going to win a first major. But I just don't think any of us kind of saw it going, as well as this, and tournament after tournament, and then the crowning moment and being world champion.
Yeah, I think there's dream years that people kind of think of, and then I think Luke Humphries has had
dream
one of the it's come it's. I mean, to say it's come out of nowhere is probably unfair. Like, he didn't get his Premier League pick last year, and it seems like it's spurred him on to show exactly why he should get a debut pick. And I think, obviously, heading into the Worlds with 3 major wins under your belt, you're going to be one of the tournament favourites. But I think, like you were saying, I remember being at the Night of Champions that the PDC put on, and they were asking Michael van Gerwen and Peter Wright, Gerwin Price, do you think Luke Humphries can go and win it? And Peter Wright very, very clearly was like, no, I don't think he's ready yet. I don't think it's his moment. And I think he's just shown all of them that not only has he got the skill, but he's got that mental kind of fortitude to kind of have resilience and come all the way, come through some hardships in some of those earlier games. And what is that? Is 18th win in a row, 19th win in a row?
Yeah.
Like, he just seems unstoppable at the moment.
Yeah, well, literally no one can stop him at the moment. Yeah, he had those couple of scares, didn't he, against Ricardo Pietreczka, against Joe Cullen as well, which made the story almost sort of just better to watch in a way, because you thought, geez, is the pre-tournament favourite going to go out? But then, like I said to him, it's like you almost expect that he won't lose at this point.
Yeah, because I think it's slightly different to Michael Smith last year, because Michael Smith had a few scares on the way, but it was we knew Michael had come good because he'd just won his major, but you were kind of always thinking, oh, is this his moment? And obviously he got his crowning moment. But I think with Luke at first it was a bit, oh, it's on the edge, but then I think it was the Cullen moment for me that was just like, oh, he's in this.
This is it. Well, let's hear from the 2 finalists now, because they joined myself and Bridgie a little bit earlier on. Myself and Bridgie, we've got the new world champion, Luke Humphries, and the world championship runner-up, Luke Littler, in our studio in Sky Sports. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. Obviously, we had an exciting night last night, and we've had a lot of media duties to do today. But I guess this is, part and parcel of the game that we both love.
Well, we're very grateful that you managed to come in here as well, because it's been a busy morning.
They've had a long day, but they've got to get used to it. They're big names.
They're celebs.
Yeah, they are. No, they've been absolutely brilliant. It's great to have them here.
We want to start with you, but at the very beginning. So take us back to, when I say very beginning, take us back to before the World Grand Prix, where you felt you were at, game-wise, mentally-wise. Because even now, when you think back to beginning of October, could you have foreseen that everything has sort of panned out the way it has?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like I was getting. Let's go back even further. Let's go back to like 2022, in the back end of the year there. I know before that everything hadn't been so great, but then I made a quarterfinal, a semi-final, and a quarterfinal. And then for the World Championships last year, I didn't really turn up, but there was some progress there. And then obviously we go into 2023, and I started off the season pretty well. And then obviously when we're going into the match play, then that's the semi-final, and then obviously the World Series finals, the semi-final. So I was building momentum. I was putting myself in these positions in major tournaments that was allowing me to believe I can make that next step. I just need to get over that semi-final line. And then obviously when I won the Grand Prix, that allowed me all that belief and confidence to now flourish and go on and win a lot more. And I would never have dreamed of doing such a quick succession. 4 major titles, but. Yeah, I'm really, really pleased I've done it.
And for you, Luke, I mean, for people in darts, because people listening to this are people who are darts fans anyway. For people outside, they're saying, wow, this kid just kind of went bang on the biggest stage of them all. But you, in a way, you've had your own journey, and you've been, playing in the development tour and obviously picking up the World Youth title. But, you've a different kind of journey, but you've had your own.
I think it all started off when I won the Irish Open, which got guaranteed me Lakeside, so that was set play. And then I've just, like you said, development tour, qualified for the UK Open on my birthday, got to the 4th round in that, and then to beat Nathan Rafferty, and then I knew a guaranteed me my tour card, and now I'm actually inside the top 32. Nathan gets a tour card back. I've had no message yet, so I hope he does send me a message. But this tournament's just been unbelievable for myself, and I'm happy to win a game, and even more happy to lose. Not happy to lose, but happy to be in a great final with Luke and alongside Russ.
The Pietreczka game for you, Luke Humphries.
Mhm.
I've never seen you celebrate like that before. Like I was watching at home, I was surprised. But was it a bit of relief, or was it just those people in the crowd?
It wasn't the whole crowd as a collective, though. Maybe I used my words wrong when I said 99% of the crowd were against me, but that's what it felt like. It felt like that. And, you could have 50% of the crowd against you and you got a 50-50 game, but when they're all booing you at certain moments and whistling and stuff, it feels like everybody's against you. And there was a certain section of about 3 or 4 people that were just whistling every throw, not when it was an important moments. And, I thought if you were going to give it, I'm going to give it back to you if I do win, and I did. And that's when you see that, explosive, celebration for myself, which I don't do very often. But sometimes in sport, these natural, celebrations that just come out of you.
Yeah, you obviously had the issue with the darts then as well. It's weird because I said, I think it was, well, after that match, even when you were 2-0 down and you looked like you were down and out, we're like, wow, the pre-tournament favourite could go out here. But weirdly watching you, it's like there was this air of inevitability that you were going to come back and win it. Is that how you feel when you're playing at the moment? Even when you are pretty much down and out, you know what, I've still got the belief I can come back from this.
Yeah, I mean, the game against Ricardo, everything felt wrong. It just didn't feel right. And in the back of my mind, I didn't believe there was going to be a comeback. But there was just one little thing burning inside of me saying, don't go out on a whimper. I want to make sure that if I'm going out, I'm going out fighting. And, I did. I fought to the end and I managed to get through that game. And then obviously it was a similar scenario with the Joe Cullen game. I was down and out in that one, but I had more belief that I could come back. It's been the same scenario in every single major title I've won. I've always had that one game. The Grand Prix was Peter Wright, Grand Slam against Gary Anderson, the Players Championship Finals against Michael van Gerwen, and then obviously, in this World Final, the World Championship I won, I had the Ricardo and the Joe game. So it seems to be, a good thing in my mind that if I go behind, I seem to go on and win the title.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, you beat tough players, didn't you? I mean, Christian Kiss, is a good player. I mean, Gilding, UK Open. Matt Campbell's having a decent tournament. Then you've got Barney, who all dart players have looked up to. Brendan Dolan, tough cookie. I mean, you never want to play Brendan Dolan in a tournament. And then Rob Cross, who's another few levels above. I mean, quite incredible. When you were going to play these guys, were you confident to beating these players every time?
I'm confident to beat anyone on my day. I had a good start against Christian with 106 and then a low 90 against Andrew, but against Andrew it was all about getting over the line because of the pace of the game. And then, like I said, all I wanted to do was win, come back after Christmas and then see what goes on, and I've just lost in the final.
Yeah, it's just funny listening to you talk and stuff because you feel. I know you're a darts fan anyway, but it feels like you're a real sort of student of the game. You watch everything, you soak everything up.
That's what I've been doing. I always watch the darts, watch what I can, but I'm just a massive darts fan. If I'm not playing, I'll watch. If I'm playing, obviously I won't watch. But yeah, I'll always watch it whenever I can.
Isn't that so? It even makes it even more mind blowing. You're this huge darts fan, and then you've just been in a final that was the most watched final in history. That will live in history forever.
I'm just glad to be a part. Glad to play a good part with Luke and obviously Russ Bray. That's his last ever final. So as he goes off, I come in. So I'm just happy that Russ has called.
But you've been a caller next year.
Yeah.
New ref.
You've got such a winner's mentality because I could tell you were really disappointed. It wasn't I got to the final. I could tell you were really down, and that's really bodes well for the future with you. But can you imagine at the start of the Christmas, you're going to get to a final and you're going to be in the Premier League? You'd have been like, nah, come on, no way.
That's why I said I just wanted to win a game, but now I'm runner up. I've got my shot in the Premier League, and now we just can't wait for it all to pan out.
What was it like in the build up to that final? Just knowing that you were going to go head to head with this young kid who is, well, at the time, the most talked about 16-year-old on the planet, basically.
Yeah, it was a daunting proposition for myself because I knew that everybody probably would have believed Luke was going to beat me. They probably did because the way he was playing, he was more consistent throughout the tournament than I was. But it was important for me, obviously, to put a statement out, being world number one in my first time. I wanted to make sure that I did put a statement out, and I have. But I couldn't have asked for a better person to play in the final. I was really privileged, to share the stage with him. But I can assure you there'll be a lot more times we share that stage, and many battles over the next 10, 20 years. And I think it's going to, hopefully take darts to that next level. I think there's kind of a new era happening now. Obviously, there's still many other great players from Michael, and he's still going to have a part to play and stuff. But I think we're seeing that sort of new era now. And Luke Littler is definitely a massive part of that.
And that 4-2 will bode well, you'd say, hopefully for you in the final. Obviously, it's something that you're going to hate looking at the moment, but in future, it could give you so much confidence.
That's all I was going to take from the tournament anyway, just confidence and experience in myself. But like you said, that 2-2, it's like I never came back. Obviously, I won a few legs in each set, but Luke just won more sets and got the job done.
You're back on something you said a minute ago. You were saying you kind of wanted to make a statement in the final. Did you want to make a statement in the semi-final? Because a lot of the talk was about this guy, and even going into that, because that was like, wow, is he sending out a message here?
Yeah, that was another thing. That was another important message I wanted to send out. I wanted to make him
Like
know
ahead of the fight.
I wanted to make him know he had a tough game. But yeah, I was in there watching. I was in awe of the performance against Rob Cross. It was. I was thinking to myself, I'm really going to have to up my game now. If I want to be world champion, I have to up it to a level that I haven't done yet. And I did in that semi-final. And I don't think Scott played bad. I just put him under so much pressure and made him miss. But I knew I had to play as well as I did last night. I knew I had to. And if I would have been 1% more off, I wouldn't have been sat here as world champion. So, I'm really pleased that I managed to put in a clinical performance, and that really did please me the last 3 games of the tournament, and the way in the fashion I did it playing.
You had the Prime Minister messaging you on Twitter, and you've had so many
David Beckham.
Instagrams. You've had Beckham as well, have you?
Beckham. Can't top it.
Blimey. Yeah.
Cristiano Ronaldo, come on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Rio Ferdinand I've seen as well, and Romeo Beckham was there last night as well. I mean,
Give me a message as well.
Unbelievable. I mean, how does that feel?
Just like my idols once again, just watching me on the TV, tuning in with the other 4.8 million.
And as we say,
I got a message off my mum.
but it's great for darts, isn't it? It's great for you. It's great for the sport, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, any bit of popularity for the sport's a good thing, and any attention for it's good. There's no doubt there wouldn't have been 4.8 million viewers last night if it weren't for Luke sitting next to me. He was a key, massive part to that, and obviously I was a small part because it was such a well anticipated final. But yeah, Luke has I don't think he really knows it, but he's took this sport to a level that I didn't think could be done in just such a short space of time. And it's all thanks to him. So there's going to be a lot of extra royalties, money that might go up in the future, and it's all down to him, and rightly so, because he's a great young kid, mature head on young shoulders, and he's got a massive future, and he's got a massive part to play in darts over the next 20, 30 years.
Yeah, I mean, you both played a brilliant part in the tournament and in the final. I mean, hearing Luke say stuff like that about, that you were sort of obviously such an integral part of this tournament and how it all played out, and having nearly 5 million people watching. What do you make of that?
It's just nice to hear. Luke's a nice lad. He's always has been a good lad. Known him for a long time, and that's it really. I'm just glad to share my first. Well, hope to be plenty more finals with him. Yeah,
well, you'll be playing in the Premier League against each other. Who else are you looking forward to playing? Because bar Rob Cross, I mean, you haven't come up against the likes of Van Gerwen, Smith, Peter Wright. It's exciting.
Gezi.
Oh yeah.
It's gonna be good. I can't wait to play. Can't wait to play them all. It's gonna be. I'm just gonna take everything as it goes, week by week, because there's pro tours involved. It's gonna be really tough, but I'm gonna have to scrape through it because of me.
It may
never happen again.
Well, are you going to give it to Gezi a little bit? Because what I actually enjoyed, it's funny when you were talking about like the celebrations against Petrechko, but you, in the breaks, it was brilliant. Whenever the Chase the Sun music came up, and he was just literally like, like enjoying every minute.
I had to do kiss cam on the side and all that.
But you just seem to like, well, I know we've continued to say it was like you really enjoyed yourself up there. You relished the opportunity. You thrived off just being up on that big stage, but you seem to enjoy every moment, and I think we're hoping that's what we can expect from you in the Premier League as well.
Yeah, I think the crowd played a big part of my journey in the World Championships, and I'm sure, obviously, maybe not in Cardiff on the first night.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
maybe in the other venues, maybe not abroad either. But hopefully they can carry the Worlds into the Premier League and get on my side.
To be honest with you, I think any venue we go to, they're going to be on your side. There cannot be a venue that we travel to across those 17 weeks where the fans aren't going to be with you. So
yeah, well, I think you've personally handled it brilliant last year because you were on the cusp, and I remember speaking to guys from the PDC. I was like, wow, but you're an example. I don't want to massage you back too much, but you are an example.
And if you want,
no, you probably need, but you are an example to players who will be looking at this and saying, I want to be in the 8, but. Yeah, so I think,
hats off to both.
Big hats, absolutely.
And just lastly, for both of you, really, how are you going to deal with the schedule? I mean, for you especially, because this is all just come out of nowhere in the sense that your life has changed so much, so drastically in the past few weeks. But how are you going to deal with travelling around to all these different venues? You mentioned you like to being on the Pro Tour as well, and just dealing with all of that.
Just gonna have to get through it. I hate the travel, but it's one of them things. Once you're there in whatever hotel you're in, and you go out for a practice the night before, then I'm settled in. So once I'm at any venue, I just seem to settle and just can't wait. I'll be buzzing. I just can't wait. I'll be buzzing every night.
What were the sort of what have been the conversations that you've had with your family about what this is going to be like, and obviously saying yes to being asked to be in the Premier League?
No, we just said it's going to be tough. We obviously seen the calendar beforehand, and obviously I didn't realise I was going to get to the World Final and get an invitation to this Premier League, so it's going to be tough. I'm going to be away from home almost every week, away from everyone, but it is what it is. This is the life.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I keep sort of saying to Luke, like, oh my God, you're in the Premier League. You're in the Premier League for the first time. Obviously, Bridgie saying a minute ago about being omitted last year, but you sort of forget just because you have become this winning machine that it's your debut in the Premier League as well.
Yeah, it is my debut, and obviously I'm new to the whole scenario as well. Obviously I know I've been a professional a lot longer than Luke, but we're both going to go into this Premier League to the unknown. We don't really, obviously we see it on TV, but behind the scenes everything's different. So, it's going to be completely different for us both, and it's quite incredible actually to both be favourites in our debut year. That's a lot of belief from the sponsors
That's
and
how good
stuff.
you are though, and how good you've been playing.
So it's a big prospect for us both. Being Premier League champion is something on the resume that would be really something I'd love to have, and this is going to be Luke's first TV tournament that he'll next play in, and I think he'd be relishing the chance to be Premier League champion as well, and I'm hoping it's me and him in the final again.
Oh, the battle is on already. You say you don't know what to expect. It's basically what you've experienced, but just a few more fans.
Oh, that's all right.
Don't worry about that. Both of you, thank you so much for joining us. So lovely to have you on the podcast, and good luck. Can't wait to watch you in the Premier League.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's almost like we can't say enough about Luke Littler, but it's like I sort of probably wake up tomorrow being like, gosh, was that all a blur? And that's me who's, removed from his situation. I would just wonder how he feels, because obviously he's sitting in here and we're speaking to him after we've done something on Sky Sports News, and he's been on all sorts of different, media outlets. He's now going to Sky News. It's for a 16-year-old kid. I mean, he really sort of holds himself really well when he's speaking, but what a whirlwind.
Yeah, and I think if you also put it in the context of, Luke Littler was 12, 13 when the pandemic happened. Like, he was this little kid who most of his kind of darting career up until the last couple of years was in this like whirlwind that we were all living in. And then I think so he kind of was learning his trade behind closed doors, almost, so to speak. And then for him to come out and have this moment is crazy. And if you put it in the context of Michael van Gerwen was 24 when he won his first Worlds. Phil Taylor was in his 30s when he started to really rocket on the world stage, and it just does feel like, I think the word that's being bandied around is generational. It does feel like he could be that talent.
Well, darts was one of those sports really where the success we've seen is people later in life, which is why we were talking about it on the show on air yesterday ahead of the final, saying this is how he compares to other sports. And to be honest, that wasn't even reflective, because we had Nadia Comaneci there, who's a gymnast, and that is a sport where it's all about being young.
Yes.
Diving with Tom Daley, whereas darts, a lot of our champions, who you mentioned Van Gerwen, maybe slightly different, but thinking about when Peter Wright first won his the first world title, it's people who are winning when they're 50 plus for him. But so that's where we're like, wow, what a future, because we don't know what the future holds, but if that is the start, what a start.
Yeah, and I think it has two things that come with it. Like, we had a 28-year-old and a 16-year-old in this final, and I think how great for the future of darts that we might have these two people kind of entertaining us for the next 20 years, but then also because of the way this has gone and kind of how much it's captured the attention of the world. Like the generations that they're then going to inspire, who are kind of 8, 9, 10-year-olds now, who might start playing darts, they will be it will bring this kind of new era of darts where 15, 16-year-olds are trying to compete on the big stage because they've seen someone do it. So it will maybe take a bit of a change from, it's 30, 40, 50-year-olds who are kind of coming good in this tournament to, no, you've got the youngsters coming up and you're going to have to beat them.
Yeah. It'd be so good to just know what the likes of like Michael van Gerwen are thinking now, after watching that final. Also, like another word on Luke Humphries, who, for him, because obviously Luke Littler has just burst on the scene, bang, from that very first match that he played out against Christian Kiss at the World Championship. But for Luke, it's like we talk about how, he suddenly started hoovering up all these majors, but his, the progression. He won the World Youth title back in 2019, and then he's picked up title here, title there on the Pro Tour, Euro Tour, but it's been a steady sort of I suppose, bar the last few months, kind of route to the top.
Yeah, and I think Luke's always been really open, hasn't he, about kind of his battles with his mental health and anxiety, and he's kind of over this last year or two kind of really come good in himself, and I think that's matched in his game as well. And he's talked about how much more comfortable he feels on that stage and kind of how hard he's worked to get to this point, and he's got his just reward, because I think he is someone who obviously has an abundance of natural talent, but like when you look at his story, it is someone who has battled to be here, and so it's nice to see him kind of taste the sweetness of that victory as well.
Yeah, definitely. We could talk about the two Lukes for hours, but brilliant to listen to them and have them here in the studio. A few other stories that actually, if it wasn't for Luke Littler, they maybe would have been, well, a story anyway. But I mean, Scott Williams, the fact that he had a pretty poor 2023. He did well on his debut the year before, but then he made it all the way to the semi-finals. I know it was a sort of disappointing finish for him in the end, going out to Luke Humphries and not getting a set against him. But he played well, and to get rid of Michael van Gerwen in the way that he did as well.
I think with Scott, the moment people started to go, okay, he means business here, is when it was against Damon Heta, and Heta had set himself up rather than going for the 170. He was like, I'm not doing it. And then Scott gets his 2 treble 20s and turns around to the crowd and is kind of geeing them all up. And he absolutely loves being the character on that stage, doesn't he? And I think from that moment when that 170 went in and he knew he had the crowd behind him, and then obviously to knock out MVG, who was a tournament favourite, like, okay, it will have been a disappointing semi-final for him, but he can say, I got knocked out by the guy who won it in the end, and on the way, I beat Michael van Gerwen.
Of course, yeah. Hopefully it's a bit of a sort of catalyst for him for the year that's to come. Rob Cross's win, obviously he was our other semi-finalist, but that comeback win against Chris Dobey felt heartbroken for Chris Dobey. But the I suppose resilience for Rob Cross, the fact that he battled back from 4 sets to 0 down, I mean, what a comeback.
I think that's the first time that's ever happened.
Yeah, it was history.
Yeah. And, it shows just what a player Rob Cross is as well, because, he won that title in 2018 and it was like, wow, this guy's burst onto the scene. And I think he showed once again why one day we will be seeing Rob Cross in another World Darts Championship final. Like, obviously, he came up against Luke Littler in this huge moment and had to, even with a 100+ average,
and even winning the first set, still just sort of blown away.
Yeah, but he's just so gracious in defeat as well, isn't he? And Rob Cross always has come across as someone who's okay with a defeat when the better person won, and he absolutely admitted that on the day. It was, I played really well, Luke Littler just played better. And so, and obviously heartbreaking for Chris Dobey, and he's experienced that before against Rob Cross as well. So, but it was one of those moments where you went, wow, this guy really, really backs himself and has confidence in himself. And it's the beauty of set play as well.
That you can...
You're always in the match.
Yeah, be afforded that you can come back. Good for Rob that he's back in the Premier League lineup as well. So that's brilliant for him. Someone who quite often goes under the radar, but he has been playing some really good stuff over the past year. Mentioned Michael van Gerwen a minute ago in the fact that he lost to Scott Williams. But, I mean, again, it shows how hard it is to win this thing. Disappointing how he went out, because it was a bit of an up and down sort of performance against Scott Williams, and before, up to that point, I think again people thought, well, he's going to just take some stopping this tournament.
Yeah, it was not the MVG we've come
Weird,
to
wasn't
know
it?
at all.
Weird.
I was watching on from the side of the stage, and when those double, like, you're just so used to he's left himself a double. Oh yeah, it's going in, and then it wasn't going in, and everyone was going, oh okay, this feels strange.
Yeah.
And Scott Williams took his chances against him completely, but it was just so on the MVG we've come to know, and I think he'll have been watching that semi-final thinking, oh, I could have had a game here against Luke. Obviously, I think Luke played brilliantly and it is a deserved world champion, but I think it is becoming a bit of a thing now for Michael of when will that 4th title come?
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, even now that we're sort of building up the Premier League, again, you go, it's just getting harder. The
Yeah.
fact that you've got Humphries in the form that he's in,
Yeah.
you know, Littler now, talking about it with the guys, and they'll be going into the Premier League as the 2 favourites. So for the likes of Van Gerwen or, you know, Michael Smith even, you're just looking saying, this is not easy.
No, not at all, because the Premier League, always you get brilliant results every week and it can go down to those final weeks. And I think with this new kid on the block, plus Luke Humphries, 2 debutants going in as the favourites, I think if someone like Nathan Aspinall or Peter Wright, who went out so early in the world, will be thinking, oh, I'm going to have my work cut out for me here to kind of get to those latter stages of it. So I think it'll be so interesting to see how kind of these world champions, big names, come out and kind of back themselves against these 2 guys who they are the 2 players when they would step on that stage in the Premier League they'll all want to beat.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. And you think about someone like Luke Littler. I mean, the crowd, whatever venue we go to, the crowd will just be right behind him. Did anyone else sort of impress you? Maybe not through making it to the latter stage. Obviously, you had Chizzy in the quarterfinals, Brendan Dolan there as well. Anyone else? Chris Dobie, you just felt heartbroken for, and then you know, it's for him. You go, if you were you thinking, you know, he was in the Premier League conversation at one point, and he should be as well because of, you know, how good he was last year. And ultimately, there's always going to be a discussion and a debate because people are going to be left out.
Yeah, I think Chris Dobie, it was his match against Ross Smith at the time in the Worlds was the best match of the tournament at that point. Like, it was like crazy to watch. Their averages were ridiculous, the 180s were ridiculous, and you were thinking Chris Dobie's in this to go all the way. Then he knocks out Michael Smith, and you're thinking, okay,
no, I believe it now. Yeah, I'm convinced.
Yeah,
he was one of the standout players, wasn't he? And it is,
I think purely on performances, he was one of the ones that you were like, wow. And then I think Brendan Dolan, like, he showed why he is one of the pros. Yeah.
Because he's just, I mean, they couldn't deal with him. And it's sort of disappointing in a sense that he didn't bring that level of performance, you know, when he did come up against Luke Littler. But, you know, that's, again, how it goes, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think he's also recently beat Michael Van Gerwen as well. So he shows he can still beat those biggest players on those biggest stages. And I think he showed us why he still is someone to keep watching on the world circuit.
Yeah. A word on the 2 female players that we saw, Fallon. You know, in the end, disappointing because it was she did well the first set, just couldn't kind of maintain it in her first round match.
Yeah, I think ever since she had that moment back in 2019, like, we've always been wanting to see it again. And I remember speaking to her pre-tournament and she was so excited, but she was taking it very game by game. And I think obviously it'll be brilliant to see kind of Fallon do that again, see Bo Greaves potentially come into the conversation and have her chance at the Worlds. And I think in the next however many 5 years, 10 years, we will see women kind of taking that leap. And when I spoke to Fallon, she said, I'm happy to be the one breaking down the barriers and kind of putting us on that stage so then more can come through, have more experience, and we hopefully will see that moment happen.
Yeah, disappointing. Mikuri Suzuki just didn't sort of play her best stuff either in her opener against Ricardo Petreczko. But looking forward to seeing kind of what unfolds in the women's series this year, and like you said, sort of seeing Bo back in action as well. Any of the other sort of, not shocks, but anything that underwhelmed you in a sense? I mean, the Gerwin Price one, it was like coming up against Brendan Dolan. You mentioned it a minute ago. You'd expect him to get past that, and Price, for a lot of people, he was their favourite for the tournament, if not to win, to get to the final. Michael Smith, of course, he'd had an up and down year anyway. Peter Wright, losing to Jim Williams, going out super early. Nathan Aspinall, there are a few who will be will come back in 2024 and just, show some sort of form and get back to some old levels.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because obviously it was disappointing to see those moments. And I think with Gerwyn Price, it was disappointing in the sense of he's admitted how hard he does find the Worlds as a tournament and as a whole. And he really wants to get that win at the Worlds in front of a crowd. And I think he kind of... Yeah, it was a disappointing moment for him, but I think on the flip side of it, and again with Nathan Aspinall, Peter Wright, it was disappointing for them, but because of that we saw so many other brilliant storylines unfold at the Worlds as well, and Gary Anderson was so many people's favourites to go all the way.
I mean, Price going in as favourite against Dolan, he was. We're thinking, right, we're already looking ahead to the next match, thinking it could be Anderson against Littler. How incredible would this be?
Yeah, everyone was looking forward to that match, and then you go, oh, that's not and so I think. Yeah, it's disappointing for them, but maybe it will spur them on to go, oh no, I want to be that guy in the storyline when it comes round to the 2025 World Darts Championship.
Yeah, we need to lie down before then. I feel like we could talk about the Worlds for another sort of 5 hours or maybe 12 months, I don't know. But Megan had a little chat with the PDC Chief Executive Matt Porter about the Worlds, but also about the 2024 Premier League picks.
So, the World Championship. We've seen viewing figures posted online by Eddie Hearn. Looking back, do you think this was the most successful tournament for the PDC?
I think it has to be. The World Championship's been growing and growing for the last 20 plus years now. But what it's achieved this year in terms of the numbers reached across all platforms, both here in the UK and abroad, and just the level of interest generally and the number of different people who became interested in it, younger people who weren't perhaps ever likely to watch the darts before. The Luke Littler story really captured everyone's imagination and they stuck with it.
Yeah, and obviously last year we had the greatest leg of all time. This year, Luke Littler. The impact he's had on the sport's global appeal, I think it's no exaggeration to say everyone was talking about him, and that is what you need to grow a sport. First of all, how do you ensure you keep all of those news fans watching the darts and for a whole year and not just over Christmas, like the Prime Minister, for example?
Yeah, I mean, look, we have to understand that people... Even the Prime Minister maybe just like darts at Christmas. And, look, the World Darts Championship at Ali Pali at this time of year, it's iconic, it's famous, it's well known. It's like a staple part of the British sporting landscape in the same way that Wimbledon in the summer is, or the FA Cup final in May, for example. But that's not to say that there isn't more great darts throughout the year. We've got the Premier League, as you've mentioned, coming up in the next few weeks. Plenty of other tournaments that will be around the country with the same players, putting on the same level of entertainment in front of the same atmospheres. So I think we're going to see a snowball effect of what's been produced over the last couple of weeks, and people will stick with it because, frankly, what is there not to like?
Of course. And secondly, lots of talk about Littler. We saw Gary Anderson's comments. How do you ensure that he's looked after in the sense of handling everything that's already happened and everything that is to follow? Ability-wise, we know he can cope on the stage and absolutely deserves to be there and deserves every opportunity that comes his way. But how do you ensure...
But Luke's shown us over the last couple of weeks that he's not only capable of delivering on the stage, but off it as well. He's taken all this attention in his stride, being stopped for photos by Premier League footballers, being invited on days out by Premier League footballers and getting messages from A-listers, etc. He's just shrugged it all off and concentrated on delivering his game. And although he lost the final, you can't say he played badly. His standard didn't drop off in any way, shape or form. But we are still conscious of the fact that he is a minor. He's 17 in a couple of weeks. There is a duty of care. There are safeguarding issues. We've got policies in place. We've got people in place. His management is very sensible. His parents and his family background is very stable. So we know he's got that support network, and there will be the right amount of resource available to make sure that every decision is made with Luke's full understanding and compliance and for Luke's benefit.
How do you manage to keep growing this sport? I mean, it's pretty remarkable, the stories that the Worlds throws up every single year, and they all happen organically. You know, we started this year's Worlds with a plumber working before he turned up for his match, and then ended it with a 16-year-old in the final. Is darts just a sport that will always produce these stories?
Look, I think so. You know, you've got that beautiful combination of full-time pros and semi-pros who have those sort of stories. You know, you refer to Cameron Menzies there, who was repairing a washing machine or whatever at 10 o'clock in the morning and then playing on stage at 7 o'clock at night. And that's the nature of many sports where, you know, not everybody further down the structure plays exclusively. You know, they have a day job or a part-time job or another occupation as well. And I think that's part of what captures the public's imagination and makes darts feel that it's something they can relate to. You know, the players are up on a pedestal, but they're not completely out of reach. You know, these are people who are normal guys from normal backgrounds who just happen to be very good at something that's very popular at the moment. And anybody can look at that and say, I can pick up a set of darts and do it. I mean, most of them have got no chance whatsoever. But anyone can look at it and think they can do it. Whereas you maybe watch a Premier League football match and you maybe think, I can't do that. You know, I might be too old, or, you know, it might not be your thing. But people can look at darts and think they can do it. And for us, that's good, because that means they can pick up a set of darts and enjoy playing, even in a social environment, whether it's in the pub or in one of the new sort of style of darts bars that's originated over recent years, or just at home in their bedroom on their garage wall. You know, it's easy to put a dartboard up and have a fun game with your friends. So you don't have to be able to average 100 to enjoy the sport.
Of course. So now let's turn our attention to the Premier League. So we've got Humphries, MVG, Price, Smith, Littler, Aspinall, Cross and Wright. Talk us through those picks and why you chose them.
Yeah, so, I mean, you've got the top four in the rankings. Obviously, Luke Humphries, the new world number one, Michael van Gerwen, Michael Smith and Nathan Aspinall. And, you know, Nathan will be very relieved to have held on to his number 4 spot in the world, because he struggled in the World Championship, went out early. But he'd won the World Match Play. So in reality, he was going to be in the event anyway. Just so happened he then moved from being a pick to an automatic choice. So then you look at Gerwin Price, Rob Cross, Peter Wright and Luke Littler. Luke Littler's obviously come out of nowhere in the last couple of weeks. He would have been a billion to one shot, you know, back in early December. But the other 3 guys are in and around the top end of the sport and have been for many years, particularly Price and Peter Wright. I know there was a lot of conjecture about Rob Cross last year, and you know, he'd sort of said he didn't want to play in it because he didn't feel his game was in the right place. But where he's gone with his own performances over the last few years, few months, he certainly has proven that he's back to that level where he won the World Championship in that famous match against Phil Taylor. You know, he was unlucky not to reach the final this year, but he was delivering darts of a suitable quality that could have lifted that trophy.
And obviously we've spoke a little bit about it, but was there any slight fears about putting Littler in, or were you confident that this was his moment and he had to take it?
Yeah, it became a throwaway comment, then it became a conversation. Then it didn't become a conversation because it just became so obvious. You know, once it was apparent that he would have been able to cope, once it was apparent, you know, and we didn't ask him outright, do you want to be in Premier League darts before the final, you know, or any stage before the tournament concluded, because that wouldn't have been appropriate. But we gauged the situation from his manager and his father, and, you know, after the event, it was, you know, there was no hesitation. He's like, yeah, I'm ready, I can do it, you know, and he's not done anything at all to disprove that in terms of his conduct and the way he's played the game. So I think Luke's ready. I think he needs a break now. I think he needs to have a few days to take stock of what's happened, get away from the cameras, get away from all the messages and everything that he'll have been getting, and then he can come back refreshed and ready to go for his first real year as a professional player.
Yeah, definitely. And the Premier League, it can divide some people. So there were the old format, which some people liked, some people didn't. Then you have the current format, and it's the same. Some people like it, some people don't. What do you think the strength of the current format is, and what else could you actually do with it?
Well, the current format is one of a number of formats that we've had over the 20-year history of Premier League darts. And if you look at the way that the tournament's evolved, every 3 or 4 years, the format evolves because we have to keep it fresh. Ultimately, we're going to the same cities every year with predominantly the same sort of players. So you want people to still turn out in force. You want people to still turn on Sky Sports to watch it in force. And you can't do that if you're just delivering the same old all the time. So we always freshen it up, either with players or a changing format. The beauty of the current format is that every match matters. Whether you've lost your last 5 quarter-final matches, doesn't matter. You can still turn up on week 6 and go and win that night and propel yourself back into contention for the playoffs, win yourself your nightly prize prize fund bonus. Whereas under the previous format, if you were struggling, if you'd lost 3 or 4 in a row, you fell out of contention for the playoffs, and all of a sudden you weren't going to make the top 4. The matches became dead matches. They were less engaging for the crowd, and we started to see that people were switching off a little bit. Well, we don't want that. What you have now is that people stay engaged right to the end because there's a winner every night. And I think for both the players and the audience in the venues and at home on their sofas, that's really important.
And for any new fans who've been brought in by the Littler effect, what would you say to them about maybe taking themselves down to a Premier League night? What kind of night can they expect?
Why not? I mean, you've seen the atmosphere at Alexandra Palace. It's replicated, multiple times over in the size of the Premier League venues. Ali Pali is smaller than any Premier League venue that we go to. And that's when you think about the atmosphere inside that venue. That's remarkable. We'll go to Rotterdam, Berlin, London, Manchester, Glasgow, Dublin, and others where there'll be over 10,000 fans there, and it's absolutely carnival-like inside. Great atmosphere, everybody enjoying themselves, everybody gripped by the action. If you haven't been, the tickets aren't expensive, and frankly, if you can still get one at some venues, you'll have done well, but you certainly won't be wasting your money.
Thank you very much for joining us, Matt.
Anything sort of stand out for you when you were talking to Matt? Because, I mean, what a tournament. Obviously, reflecting on these ridiculous viewing figures, and then they've come out. It's quite nice to have the Premier League announcement the day after the Worlds. Well, it'd be nice to have it straight after, but, if that's not possible, the day after, so that there isn't any kind of, this ongoing speculation, who's going to be in, who's going to be out.
Yeah, I think the Premier League is always the top stars in the sport, isn't it? But I think off the back of what the Worlds has just been, to be able to say these are our 8 players who are going up there, and obviously to talk about him again, but for Luke Littler to be one of them, it just brings this other element to it. And I think Matt was really interesting on kind of how the Worlds is like the Wimbledon or the FA Cup or any of those big moments, but then we do have all these brilliant tournaments throughout the year as well.
In Wolverhampton and Leicester.
And Dublin and Cardiff. And I think and the funny thing about the Premier League is the Ali Pali is quite a small venue. It doesn't actually hold that many people.
This is what I've sort of felt silly when I said it to Luke Littler.
Yeah.
And when we're saying by the way, you ready for the Premier League? Because the Worlds is big, obviously, but you go to Mercedes-Benz Arena in Berlin and it's 12,000. It's different sort of levels in a sense.
Yeah, when you're at the final at the O2, you're like, whoa, this big.
This is almost too big.
Yeah. But you wonder if that's the kind of, it feels so big that it almost might feel a bit surreal. Whereas at the Ali Pali, it's like, well, the crowd are there and they're right there.
Yeah.
But I think it's a really, really strong lineup. Who wouldn't be tuning into that? And it's also the fact we get to see Humphries, Littler on the stage every week, and every week it'll be Littler faces Michael van Gogh for the first time.
That's what's really exciting, because it's like we didn't get, because of how it all panned out, we didn't get that at the Worlds.
No.
We didn't get the Littler and Go and Price meeting in their quarter. Then we never of course saw it with MVG. I mean, he didn't even play Humphries there, as a lot of us sort of thought he would. So it's going to be again, you just expect Littler to just deal with it, don't you?
Yeah. But like Michael van Gogh's attitude, he'll absolutely relish the chance.
You want to put him in his place, for sure.
He would just love to go out there and go, no, I'm still Michael van Gogh. And again, it's a chance for Michael Smith to go, no, I want to come back and do this again. Like he said prior to the Worlds, he knew he didn't have the most amazing year in the lead up to it, but he doesn't want just one. He wants 2, 3, 4 of these. So I think all of them will be using this Premier League as kind of a moment to get back in form. And for someone like Go in Price, to win it would be just such a huge confidence.
Yeah, and it was weird because last year he went into the finals night and he was the favourite.
It was,
and then he just sort of got blown away by Van Gogh in the end. But it seemed like he'd actually started enjoying the Premier League as well, which he hadn't had previous years.
Well, he was getting those cheers from the crowd.
Yeah,
he was changing his shirt. Yeah, he was changing his shirt depending on where he was, and it was all going in the right direction. And I remember being at that final and thinking, because of how he'd performed at all these other venues that weren't Wolverhampton.
He looked unstoppable. Yeah, exactly.
It looked like, no, he can perform wherever it is. And yet that final, Michael van Gogh did a Michael van Gogh, I guess, and
exactly.
kind of put him in his place again. But for any of these players, the Premier League can be a huge catalyst for the rest of the year.
Yeah, already can't wait. Well, after one of the most memorable tournaments we have ever seen. Time to take a little break, but not for too long, don't worry, because the Premier League begins on February the 1st, live on Sky Sports. So we'll be back just before that to preview that and look at what went on at Q School as well. Thanks to Meg for joining me.
Thank
Enjoyed
you.
that.
Yeah.
Good. And for Luke and to Matt as well. Well, both Lukes actually, and to Matt Porter for their special appearance. So thanks, guys. And of course, thanks to you for listening. As always, we'll speak to you soon.